What's up everybody, I'm Stephen O'Brien and on behalf of BetBright I'm bringing you the road to the Super Bowl. Right, first up we have the AFC Championship game. So in this preview, it's AFC Championship, it's NFC Championship, it's effectively the semi-finals of the NFL. So the AFC matchup sees the Jacksonville Jaguars march into Gillette Stadium to take on the New England Patriots. When we look at these two teams and the series between them over the years, they've had 11 games and 10 of those have been won by the Patriots. So if that's not an indicator of how things go, I don't know what is. The Patriots are 10-1 in those series, and the last time they faced off against each other in the regular season was in September 2015, and the Patriots went 51-17 over them, dropped a 50 burger. There are two very different teams, and Gus Bradley had put into place a pretty good defense in Jacksonville, and that's what we're seeing in this game. The last time they faced off in the playoffs was back in 2008, and the Patriots won there as well. So the Patriots are coming into this game with this is going to be their 7th consecutive AFC Championship game, which is the longest run since the 1970s, since 1970 in fact, whereas the Jacksonville Jags haven't been in this game since 1999. The Patriots coming into this game after coming off a pretty convincing win over the Tennessee Titans. A bit of a slow start in the first quarter and then they completely pasted them thereafter. Gronkowski looked unstoppable. Whereas the Jacksonville Jaguars, although they're coming in victors of course against the Steelers, this defense, which is seen as kind of the premier defense in the NFL or one of the premier ones, the Vikings, which we can see in the NFC, they didn't look too convincing. They let the Steelers put up 42 points on them and that game could have really went either way, so that's pretty concerning. The Patriots are the top scoring offense in the NFL and the Jaguars are one of the top scoring defenses. I think they're second, depending on what sort of stat you want to look at online, with 7 defensive touchdowns this year. Now, according to Pro Football Focus, Rob Gronkowski gained the first down on 84% chance of all of his receptions, which is just absolutely bonkers. Whereas on the opposite side of the ball, Myles Jack allowed up a passer rating of 138.9 when covering tight ends. Like, you know, this is a Jacksonville Jaguars team that are the second best in defense with a league high of 55 sacks and 21 interceptions. I think that might be second best in the league. So, you know, they get after the quarterback, they pull down interceptions. When it comes to looking at individual matchups, Rob Gronkowski seems to have it on them. The Patriots, as it stands, currently have an 80% chance of reaching the Super Bowl, and after that a 57% chance of winning it. So that's a real indicator in this game. But now let's take a look at the Patriots team and see what we're up to. So the Patriots have good individual parts. So if we look at their offense, they have the number 1 quarterback in Tom Brady. That's not me being biased, that's by looking at stats. They have the number 2 running back in Dion Lewis. They also have James White, who has 5 touchdowns in his last 2 postseason games. So, you know, he can be elite, and he especially steps up to the plate when they really need him. He punched in a couple of touchdowns in the last game against Tennessee. They have wide receivers who are experienced, and Danny Amendola, Philip Dorsett, Chris Hogan, who they got off the Bills a couple of years ago. They've the number 1 tight end, and Rob Gronkowski, as I said, 84% of his receptions go for first down, so he's an absolute load. So it's a really pick your poison style. The only weakest link with the Patriots would be Adrian Waddle at right tackle. You know, he's along their offensive line, they're quite okay apart from him, and he's going to go up against defensive end Yannick Ngakoue, who is elite, so that might be the weakest link on the night. Now let's take a look at the Patriots defense. So they have a great safety tandem with McCourty and Chung, and at cornerback they have Stephon Gilmore and Malcolm Butler, who was the absolute MVP of the Super Bowl against the Seahawks when he came down with that interception at the goal line. Their edge rusher Trey Flowers also is elite. So they have some nice bits on defense, but they're still, that would be their overall as a team basis, that would be their weakest link. So let's go across now and take a look at what we're getting with the Jags. So let's start with the Jacksonville Jags offense. Undoubtedly their biggest weapon is Leonard Fournette. This guy ran for 109 yards and 3 touchdowns in their last game. He's the only rookie in NFL history to run for over 100 plus yards and have 3 touchdowns in the postseason. Blake Bortles is a threat with his mobility. He had the best passer rating from week 13 to week 15, and thereafter he has one of the worst. So he can be very hot and cold, but it shows that he has the ability. They tend to be behind in games, and certainly in previous seasons they were, so they had to really throw to catch up, and that's been the case with Blake Bortles. So we see that he has over 3,500 yards passing in the last 4 seasons. He's the 4th highest on that list of passing yards in the first 4 seasons in NFL history as well. They have wide receiver Alan Hearns, Keenan Cole, Marquise Lee, and their tight end Mercedes Lewis is a top 10 tight end in the league. Let's see what they have on defense, which is ultimately the sort of linchpin of their team. So let's start with the weaknesses. So at safety, this is their weakest position, but they still have safeties that are the two safeties that they have. They're still top 25 in the league. It really falls with defensive end, and I mentioned it before. Yannick Ngakoue, he has 12 sacks, and Calais Campbell, who's the best in the AFC with 14.5 sacks this season. Jalen Ramsey also is the second best cornerback in the league. And with linebackers Telvin Smith and Miles Jack, these are all top 20. So this is an absolutely stout defense. They can stop the run, they can stop the pass. The problem that they're going to face is they're coming up against the best quarterback in the league in Tom Brady. They're coming up against, really experienced wide receivers, especially when it gets to the postseason. As I said, this is the 7th consecutive AFC Championship game. This team goes the distance. They've got to put up against the top tight end. And as I said, some of their linebackers really suffer against tight ends. So this is going to be a real challenge. So it's going to be, a strength of top offense versus top defense. So the Patriots are favourites to win this. The BetBright odds are on the screen now. We have to say to ourselves, can the Patriots put up that amount of points? The bookies are saying that they can. Let's look at how the Jaguars might be able to actually beat the Patriots in this game. So the key to beat the Patriots is pressure. It all comes down to sacks. If you sack Tom Brady 1 or none, well then he's going to win the game 85% of the time. That's not coming from the top of my head. That's stat based. If you sack Tom Brady 4+ times in a game, he's lost those games. He's won the game 62% of the time. So still, if you sack the hell out of him, he's still at a 50-50 or more odds of winning the game. So that's number one. That's what you have to do. And if you look at the games that Tom Brady has lost and won, it all comes down to pressure. So in the Super Bowls that he's lost, he's been sacked a ton of times. When you look at the likes of the Falcons game last year, they got an awful lot of pressure on him in the first 3 quarters, but that dropped off in the fourth and in overtime because the defense got tired, because Tom Brady, trying to catch up, had to run the no huddle. That put pressure on the defense, tired them out, and they couldn't bring that pressure. You look at that game that they won against the Seahawks. Now, albeit they won it at the death of that game, and that's all because Malcolm Butler came in and got that interception. However, the Patriots came back into that game because Cliff Averill was carted off with an injury, which means that Tom Brady wasn't pressured as much. So the key to these games is pressure. The last thing that you need to do against the Patriots is don't let Bill Belichick take your number one weapon away. That's Leonard Fournette. You need to come up with a way schematically to make sure that Leonard Fournette gets the purchase that he needs to get those big chunk yards. If he doesn't step up to the plate, Blake Bortles will have to. If one of them or both of them are not on the day, they're going to lose this game, and the Patriots are going to cover this spread. The Patriots are well capable of putting up 50+ points on this Jaguars team, but this is a stronger defense from the Jags. They need to bring the defense, bring the pressure, and someone needs to step up on offense. That's the only way that they can win this game. Now onto the NFC Championship game. Alright, so the NFC Championship game. This is a matchup where the Vikings have to go in to Philadelphia and take on the Eagles. The Eagles are still seen as the underdog, and that's mostly down to the quarterback Nick Foles, because he's coming in to replace Carson Wentz, who's got injured. So both of these teams haven't reached the NFC Championship game for almost a decade. The Vikes haven't seen it since 2009 when they threw it all away. Thank you, Brett Favre. And then we look at the Eagles, who haven't been here since 2008. So they both haven't been on this stage now for quite some time. The last game that these guys played against each other, the Eagles won. The last time that they met in the playoffs, the Eagles won. But you can't look at past performance, especially not now when the quarterback for the Eagles isn't who they thought it was going to be. Now, the last game that these two teams played is that the Eagles won by 5 points. It looked scrappy. They basically scraped through with 2 field goals to win the game. Whereas the Vikings won that walk-off touchdown, the only walk-off touchdown in playoff history. So that's quite a record. The Vikings are on a high right now, and they're looking that if they get through this game, they're in the Super Bowl and they get to play that at home. The first time a team has ever played the Super Bowl in their home stadium. They've been on a high all week. So the real question is, have the Vikings peaked too early? Is this too much excitement for this team, and will they ultimately lose to an Eagles team who have an absolutely fantastic defensive front? So according to Pro Football Focus, when you put pressure on Nick Foles, for instance, his quarterback rating goes from 106 all the way down to 24. So that's going to be a key in this game. And on top of that, Case Keenum, when you put pressure on him, his rating goes down from like over 100 down to 78. So he's still pretty good under pressure. The real key to this game is going to be the Vikings banged up O-line. So the Vikings have a really injured O-line. They've got second and third stringers coming in, and the Eagles have an absolutely elite defensive front. So the question here is is, can the Eagles get the pressure on that Vikings O-line to make Case Keenum make those mistakes and to nullify, some of the best wide receivers in the game, and Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. But let's take a look at the Eagles' offense and defense and see what we're dealing with. So offensively, we all know about Nick Foles. He's going to be standing beside one of the best O-lines in the league, apart from on the blind side, and that's where Everson Griffen for the Vikes is going to be a real factor. Can Griffen get the pressure that he's got all year on Nick Foles? And if he does, that's going to sort of show what type of game this is going to turn out to be. The Vikes, and the odds are on the screen right now from BetBright, are very, very small in the Vikings' favour. But if the O-line can hold up against this Vikes defence, well then they might have a tough time of it, because on defence, which we're going to look at in a second, the Eagles are pretty stout. When you look at the offensive weapons then for the Eagles, we have Aguilar having a career year, Alshon Jeffrey having a career year, and Zach Ertz also having a career year. So they're really stepping up to the plate. Let's hope that they keep that up and we're going to get a good game. They're the only trio in the league with 8+ touchdowns this season, which is pretty good. Now for Nick Foles, it comes all down to schematics, right? I love using that word. So what the coach should do, Doug Peterson, what he needs to do is, or Pedersen, whichever one you want to go for, he needs to go and call these, read pass option plays. So he needs to give Nick Foles the option to either hand it off quickly or get his first read. And that's exactly what they did last week, and that's how they got the win. They've Jay Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount. They're two sort of real old school running backs, and Jay Ajayi, the London-born running back, is a throwback to the old school. This guy's pretty tough. On defense, the Eagles have an absolutely ridiculous front seven. They've got Brandon Graham with 9.5 sacks, Fletcher Cox with 12 sacks. These are elite. Their cornerback, Patrick Robinson, is elite. Kendricks is an absolutely elite linebacker. These are going to get pressure on the Vikings, and if they can get enough pressure on Case Keenum, they might be able to nullify that pass threat, and then they're just going to have to worry about their running backs. This is going to be a really tough in-the-trenches game. Let's get on to have a look at the Vikes. So the Vikings offensively have a top 10 quarterback in Case Keenum. They've 2 top 10 wide receivers in Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. They've top 10 running back in McKinnon, and Latavius Murray gets the job done as well. But they have a bad O-line, and that's going to be the key to this game. Can the Eagles front seven get the pressure on the O-line in this game? And if they can put pressure on Case Keenum and start making him make mistakes. The Vikings defensively are one of the best units in the league. So they have the best safety in Harrison Smith. Andrew Sendejo, who looked like he took an injury in the last game, is 11th on that list. They have a great cornerback, Xavier Rhodes, and Terrence Newman is defying all odds. Although he's not seen as one of the top and elite, he still gets the job done, and he put up a fantastic game in the last game. Defensive end Linval Joseph is a game changer. Everson Griffen is just unstoppable in his pass rush, and his run defense is crazy as well. Linebackers are the weaker unit of this standout D, and that's really where this will come down to. Can they work the tight ends in the middle? Can they use slot receiver to get in and work the middle of the field and get those yards? We seen last week with the Eagles what they were doing is they were asking Nick Foles to do that read pass option. If he was going for the pass, they had wide receivers stop just at around 10 yards and get that first down, and they just always seem to eke that first down. So it's going to be that effort that's going to be important. The Vikings are the ones who are seen that are going to win this game by a very slim margin. What do the Eagles have to do to beat them? This is going to be a tough one for the Eagles to do, to be able to beat the Vikings, but it's all going to come down to defense. Can they get the pressure on that bad O-line of the Vikings to pressure Case Keenum to make mistakes? And then they just have to really work on their pass rush, because they're the 3rd best rushing defense in the league. They need to trust that they're good at that. They need to stop the Vikings in that regard and more so focus on that pass rush if they can get pressure on Case Keenum. If they do that, they will win this game, and we could potentially be seeing a Tom Brady, Nick Foles Super Bowl. And I don't know if that's what they want for the TV ratings, because it might be a foregone conclusion. But like I said earlier in this piece, I mean, the key to beating Tom Brady is pressure, and certainly the Eagles defense can bring that pressure. Right guys, that's the wrap up for the Road to the Super Bowl vlog. Be sure to check in again on my post-review piece, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, on the BetBright blog first thing on Monday morning. It's going to be a fantastic weekend of football. It is all up in the air and very unpredictable. Could we see the Jags knock off the Patriots? Maybe. Could we see the Vikes get that win and continue their momentum to play the Super Bowl at home? Who knows? Check back in on Monday, and I'll talk to you then.